All right, good afternoon, everyone. We'll start a bit late. It's 2:10. Thank you for everybody for coming. Wow, I've got quite the audience. That's awesome for the first kickoff of the working group for the Liquor Enforcement Division. For those of you who don't know me, which I don't think there's many of you that don't, I'm Patrick Maroney, the Director of Liquor Enforcement Division. And I want to make sure that we try to get out of here early, but I thought we could start at 3 o'clock next time, if that's okay with you. On a Friday? On a Friday. Yeah. No, I say that in jest. I understand. I do appreciate coming on a Friday at 2 o'clock, and hopefully we'll be getting out a little bit earlier than 5. But we do have a pretty packed agenda, as you saw in the information that I sent out to everybody, and with the documents before you. We have a pretty heavy agenda to work this year. Some of it was because of legislation, some of it was just because of current issues, and I am most assured that you'll bring some issues I'm not even aware of to the table to discuss. So before we start, so we have started, we'll have introductions of everybody here. We'll start to my right, if we'll introduce everybody at the tables, and then we'll go to the public after that.
Linda Atkins, the Colorado Attorney General's Office.
Hi, I'm Don Yamick, and I am the Chief of Investigations in the Liquor Enforcement Division. I've been there about 8 months, so I've met most of you, not some of you.
Mark Berzins with Little Pub Company and the Tavern League of Colorado.
Sandy Metzger with Breckenridge Tourism Office.
Jim Spall at Appledeck Wine and Spirits. Steve Gould, Golden Wing Distillery, and the Colorado Distillers Guild.
And Laura Sigma, who's going to start driving.
Sharon Lou with the Office of Behavioral Health, and I mostly work with communities around the state.
Jenny Green, who's going to council.
John Stonebreaker, and today I'm with the Colorado Restaurant Association.
John Tipton, Colorado Hair Distributor.
Karen Borkman representing Anheuser-Busch.
Jen Penn, representing Miller Coors.
Doug Caskey with the Colorado Wine Board.
Sonia Riggs, Colorado Restaurant Association.
Jean McAvoy, Colorado Licensed Beverage Association, representing off-premise retailers.
Justin Woods, Beverage Distributors Wholesaler.
Mickey Hackenberger, Wine and Spirit Wholesalers, Colorado.
Mickey Vetrolini with the Colorado Bar Owners Association.
I'm Detective Terry from Denver Police Department.
Hi, I'm Ron Camerzell with the Department of Revenue.
And then members in the back, please go ahead and start. Jim?
Jim Blanford, Liquor Attorney.
Rebecca Bellick, I'm Centerplate with Fillmore Auditorium.
Adam Stakeman over at Dill & Dill, Liquor Attorney.
J.D. Weitzel, Anheuser-Busch, Denver.
Rachel Ego from the Club at Rolling Hills.
Laura Long, Colorado Brewers Guild.
Nick Hoover, Colorado Restaurant Association.
Colleen Morey, Denver City Attorney's Office.
Kim Fong, Crew Sergeant, Denver.
Ashley with the CLBA.
Steve Finley, Colorado Beer Distributors Association.
Thank you very much. I'm going to make sure we hand her out. There's 2 sign-up lists. One's for the working group members, and then one's for anyone else. If you're in the either one, would you please fill this out? I'm going to pass around. Just make sure you get on this list, so we can keep accurate record of who's here. Because I'll guarantee the moment I leave here, I will not remember all your faces. So I'm going to hand this around. Make sure everybody signs up. So again, welcome. For those of you that were here last year, that we worked through several issues with the working group. It was a really successful season, I guess you want to call it. And I look forward to doing that again this year. We have a lot of things to discuss, and I just want to, again, thank you for your time, because last year was so successful that we want to continue this type of format with an open discussion and transparency of what the division does along with the industry. And we made a lot of strides. A lot of the bills that were passed last year were because of the working group and their cohesiveness working together, and the industry coming together and working on those bills. So it was really encouraging to see that last year. So I hope that we continue in that manner. I'll try. We're having a call in here to let's space that out. Chuck McGrigg wanted to call in, so I need to set that up. Sorry about that. We'll get that going here in a minute. Guidelines for here is as much active participation as possible. There are circumstances where maybe you may not be able to attend. You may send a proxy for you, or maybe call in. We're trying to get as much face-to-face active participation, because if you're not here, we really can't hear your voice to know what you think and feel about the issues that we're talking about. So I really hope everybody can commit the best as possible. Understanding life throws some curves and work and stuff, and I understand missing a meeting or two, but really be committed to continue with this process. Again, Friday at 2 o'clock, right? Does everybody have a copy of the 2015 liquor industry working group items? Does anyone need an extra copy of me? Can get it enough for everybody? Okay. What I did is I printed out the items that we, as a division, want to discuss, and then also listed the items listed by stakeholders. Most of you here today that listed items they wanted to discuss. And last year we were successful by sort of pairing them into 4 categories. Last year was training, licensing, trade practices, and can't remember the fourth. My brain went dead. And we can have 4 or 5 groups this year create subgroups in order to tackle these issues more efficiently. It's hard to do that with a big group like this. So I really wanted to look at all the items we list and maybe come up with 4 or 5 or maybe 3 if we can, but I don't think it's going to be that minimal. 4 or 5 groups that we can attack these things pretty assertively, because we're now in June. We want to start the rulemaking process probably in September, if not a little earlier. So I want a lot of our work to be done. So unfortunately, we're sort of an aggressive timeline. So we have a lot of work to do. And the subgroups, it seems to be a lot easier to get meetings of subgroup members of smaller amount of people together to be able to tackle these issues. So I'll start off with the most favorite item of all, which is powdered alcohol. I've discussed this with a lot of these issues with most of you in here, and the division wants to bring powdered alcohol into the state in a safe manner, the safest manner as possible, and mitigate all the concerns the industry and the division has about powdered alcohol. So it's going to be its own subgroup altogether. I don't think we should combine it with anything else. I think there's enough topics on there that I think it's going to keep that subgroup quite busy to get through the summertime. Any objection to making powdered alcohol its own separate subcommittee? I think most everybody in the room might want to be on that committee, so we'll see. And excuse my cough, I'm just barely getting over a cough and cold. The next thing on the list I wanted to mention some of the things that from the legislation this year that they passed that affect us. We may not necessarily need a subgroup for these, but the things I want to discuss with you to see if you believe they do, because there's a certain little amount of things that we need to do to get some of the rules ready for these bills. One is the entertainment district expansion that includes beer and wine licenses, beer tap rooms, winery sales rooms, and distillery sales room to be attached to a common consumption area with an entertainment district. And for us, it's going to be a minimal rulemaking just to make sure that language is in the rule. I don't know if it needs actually working group action on it, but I wanted to make sure that this whole group understood what we're looking for and looking at for the entire year. So open that discussion. Entertainment district expansion. Do we need to have a working group with that?
I'll jump in and say I think there needs to be some discussion. I don't think it needs to be a full-blown working group, but certainly the manufacturers are going to have tasting rooms, and the other businesses that are going to be in entertainment districts that are represented in the group ought to at least sit down and have a sidebar and say, okay, how do we deconflict? How do we make sure that that the rules that are in place are consistent with effective business operations?
Yeah. And that sort of dovetails in a little bit to the one down towards the bottom of the list called local input for sales rooms. Those are somewhat together but separate. One's the attachment to the entertainment district is fairly benign. It's just they can be a part of the entertainment district. But I think with the local input from sales rooms that was passed, that definitely merits some discussion, and I'm willing to do that. I'm not sure how much time we want to spend on that, but I know there's some concerns about how that's going to be implemented by rules, and we do have to implement the number of days a temporary sales room is going to be, so we can have the discussion. I'm glad to put that as part of the working group.
I think that needs to be part of the working group. There are other manufacturers in the room. I don't know what your thoughts are, but this does a little bit change the way we interact with our local communities, and local municipalities, townships, etc. So I think we ought to certainly at least take a look at those rules and discuss them and make sure that.
Would it make sense, Patrick, to have kind of a manufacturer and local authority working group that deals with primarily the local input, but also would touch on entertainment district, so that's kind of that's a subgroup.
So a state and a local, we said, as a
I'm saying,
manufacturer?
if it was, if that subgroup was targeted mostly around local input, and I'm thinking it being, largely manufacturers and local authorities, but obviously there's other people who are.
I think they're pretty simple issues as long as we can talk them out. I don't know if it would be near the scope of some of the other working groups or subgroups we had last year,
All right.
but I think it needs to happen.
Okay. Hold on for 1 second. Okay, as we go along and see if that happens to fit in any other subgroup, but we'll keep that as a group right now. Local input and manufacturers. Okay. Another law that passed was for reissued licenses. That's where the, I'm sorry, any more discussion on the entertainment district / local input for sales room? I didn't want to cut that short.
I think we're fine.
Okay, good. The reissue license bill that was passed that allows entities that expire more than 90 days. I don't know if we need a subgroup for that. It's just going to take a few rule changes just to make sure it's consistent with the statute, and we'll do that during the official rulemaking period. No, this is the working groups leading up to rulemaking. And most of the heavy lifting's done now with the working groups. When we get to rulemaking, it's pretty much all done for us. We know what we're going to go for and ask for as far as rule changes. But that's a pretty, just some language change within the rules to match what the law says. So I'm not sure if we need a subgroup.
The only question that I would have is, are we gonna get a chance to even get an idea of, can you give us a draft of what you're thinking in case we've got, before we get to the rulemaking? Because the idea, I think, behind this group is to work out any kinks before we get to that point.
We can, yes.
I don't anticipate any crazy things coming from that, but I just don't wanna be surprised.
Yeah.
And then we didn't get a chance to talk about something.
I guess looking at the priority, I think once we get through the day, we can take a look at that.
And all I'm thinking is it could be, I don't know what your timeline is, but it could be starting to maybe draft what you're thinking that'll look like, and at some point, when you get to that point, just pass it by the committee and say, does anybody have any input that we wanna bring up, and if not, then.
Okay. Yeah, do you think we need a subgroup though? I don't think we necessarily do, okay. We'll definitely communicate that to the industry, absolutely, on the ratio. And the nice thing is we really haven't seen, I think, but one problem with expired license, maybe two, past 90 days, because we're sending out letters of expiration letters. So that's catching a lot of them on the before that happens. So I'm hoping this was a law that was passed that's good, but hopefully we won't need to use it very much. So distillery pubs. That's in effect right now. It was passed in April. It's the law's in effect right now. We actually have one distillery pub application sitting in the state in our office waiting to be reviewed. So our rulemaking efforts would be just to mirror a lot of the brew pub rules with distillery pubs. What's the thought about having a subgroup on that? Could we dovetail that into the manufacturer? I know it's not a manufacturer necessarily. I'm being sensitive here. It's a retail license. Okay, it's a tier 3 license. But what's your thoughts as far as a subgroup for the distillery pubs?
I don't think we need one.
All right.
Again, I think, if you have any rules to draft and run by the committee at some point, I think that's fine.
Okay, good. The last one that came from legislation is the EBT enforcement. I would definitely like a subgroup on that.
Welcome to CenturyLink conferencing. Please enter your passcode followed by the pound or hash key. Now connect you.
I'm sorry, EBT is.
EIEIO, yeah, I know.
Electronic benefits.
Yeah, all these acronyms, I apologize. But,
Thank you. Passcode is confirmed. When you hear the tone, you will be the first person to join the meeting. The line will be silent until another person joins.
The EBT enforcement bill, what it did is mandates the department to promulgate rules on areas where EBT transactions cannot legally be done, and have a set of rules on those establishments that are liquor licenses in this case. with signage requirements, and up to potential, fine requirements if they allow EBT transactions and ATMs in their locations. So I think this is something that I really like to have a subgroup on. Any objections?
Yeah, well, we did that's okay.
If I might jump in.
Yeah.
The way that the statute was written, and we're currently looking at this, in all likelihood, these rules will be promulgated under the department and not under every division, because it affects gaming, racing, liquor, tobacco, and marijuana. So, in all likelihood, we'll probably do it as a separate rulemaking, and the rules will actually be under the department instead of under each of the agencies. So one of the thoughts that we had on that is to have a separate working group process for that, where we bring in all of the licensees that are affected. I don't think it's gonna be a heavy lift. I think most of it's gonna be recodification of what's in the statute, but certainly giving a little bit more direction to our licensees on what's gonna be expected of them and what they need to do. So, so I'm thinking maybe we just keep it out of the liquor one specifically, and then we'll make sure to give you all notice when we're gonna do a working group on that. And I think it's probably one we might be able to get done in an afternoon, if not maybe another meeting. But I think it's gonna be pretty straightforward.
And if you haven't had a chance to look at the look at the new laws, they're posted on our website, and I think they're also in the letter, linked to the letter that I sent everybody as far as the new laws that were changed. So if you hadn't had a chance to look at those, I encourage you to do that, because there's a lot of good information in there and what the changes were. Plus, we had 2 meetings here at the division on just going over those bills a little bit more with a fine-tooth comb to help people understand what the changes were, and we had pretty decent attendance. I'm willing to do that again if necessary, so if it's something you think you want, let me know. I'll be glad to have it was like a 1-hour class to discuss all these bills and to sort of discuss them one at a time, the effect of the bills and the overall liquor industry.
Chuck, can you hear?
Yes.
All right.
Sort of, kind of, but that's okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chuck. This is Patrick. I apologize. I had forgotten about our telephone conference, so you can blame that on me. But we're just now going through the list of agenda.
I appreciate you allowing me to do this, Pat.
Yeah, no problem. Do you have a copy of the working group items, Chuck?
Yes, I have everything that you sent us in front of me.
Okay, we just went through the first ones over the legislation. We decided to create a working group on powdered alcohol, and then another one about manufacturers and local input on sales rooms. So those are 2 subgroups we decided to create so far. So now we're going into the issues that are before us as a division. So that's to catch you up there, Chuck.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Great. Any questions about the ones we talked about so far? Awesome. From current issues before the division, these are things that sort of have come in throughout the year that people have discussed with us, and I've decided that these are probably good things to discuss. Whether we do them or not, I think as a group we need to discuss them. The first one is product registration. And I tried to, not sneak this, but I tried to get this done last year, but I was just a little bit too late. The issue with product registration is our rules now say that you need to register the product with the division, but before you do that, you either have to have a COLA, a certification of label approval, or a letter of exemption from the TTB. The problem is, especially with hard cider and some other products, that the TTB gives neither. So it's like a catch-22. They can't register until they get the COLA or a letter of exemption, and they don't get a letter of exemption or COLA. How can they register? So it's sort of it's an issue we want to clarify. It's an easy language change to where we put like a if applicable under the TTB. It's a simple change, and it will help alleviate some of that confusion, like we need any more of that in the liquor code, to allow the registration process to be a little simpler. So I don't think I need a subgroup, but that's what we're looking at. I had a lot of questions going, what's going on, what's going on? That's what's going on. It's a simple language change to allow simpler registration process. Any questions on that? And of course, anything that we do, we always publish that to everybody to make sure they know what we're doing before we get very far. Any questions? Trade practices is its own, I think from last year, excuse me, is its own own subgroup. And so it's a standing subgroup that is going to continue on for probably a long time. I think, so that's just a standalone group that we're going to continue on. I know some of the things we're going to talk about is continue on talking about breakage, returns, and some of those things. And that takes us to our next one. What's that?
Samples.
Samples. Thank you, Mickey. Yes. Thank you. Samples.
Just wanna be helpful.
You are. Thank you very much. Which sort of takes us to the next one, a replacement of malt liquor for malt beverage regulation 47322F3. I issued a bulletin here, about a month ago, about replacement of for malt beverage and malt liquor. And it specifically talked about if you have a seasonal product that's out of freshness date or out of code, or it's expired, put it that way. If you read the regulation, it says that you can replace it with the same kind of product. Well, you can't because it's not available, because it's out of season. So by a letter and by my bulletin, I authorized them to be able to replace it with the same brand, I guess the next one in line. Going from a summer to a fall to a spring, whatever, as long as the cost or the price was not more than the original item. So they can replace a summer beer with an Oktoberfest and so forth. And then we also, by the bulletin, defined freshness. That's not been defined anymore in the code. What is freshness? We decided by the bulletin to say that's within 30 days of expiration. The expiration, there's something has to be on the container of alcohol, on the individual container of alcohol, that either has an expiration date, or it may have a code that you have the manufacturers put on that they know what the expiration date is, and that can be easily identified by a wholesaler. And if you're within 30 days of that expiration, you may remove it, replace it with the next season of products, and even possibly move that product you removed to a location that might be able to sell before the expiration date. Now, I think we're fully legal and allowing it to have to happen, but I really would like to codify that by the rule. So that's my thought on that specific trade practice rule, is put that bulletin more into a rule. And have an open discussion about it. Maybe 30 days was too long. Maybe it was too short. Maybe it should be 0. I don't know. The discussion I think we should have with that, and I think I'd like to bring that to the trade practice group. We'll just discuss it within the trade practice subgroup.
You anticipated that one.
Okay. Awesome. Modification of premises while operating under a temporary permit. I've had a discussion with a few of you in here about that, and I think we came up with a solution, sort of. And let me run you through this. The state we do not do concurrent reviews on transfers. So if you have a licensee who has a business and they're transferring to another company, they by a temporary permit can take over that business, run the operation, they're selling alcohol, and so the need for concurrent review is not there because they're actually selling the alcohol. And they can get a temporary permit for up to 180 days. So the ability to have a concurrent review is not there. So we don't allow concurrent reviews on transfers. Okay, but the problem comes when a person or a company buys an establishment and they do a transfer and get a temporary permit. A lot of the times these companies want to modify the establishment, move a bar, move the seats. They want to make it their own, And the way we run right now is we don't allow that modification to be done until the local and the state both approve it. So that takes, as you know, the state's been really fast on their application review lately.
Why are you guys laughing?
So it's you can be a business, you may get the transfer and the permit, and you still may wait 3 to 4 months before you actually be actually able to start your modifications. Okay? Well, and looking at the law and looking at the rules, we think we came up with a way that will help alleviate some of that. Okay, not totally do away with it. And what it is when a company applies for that transfer license, as a part of that application process, they also submit the diagram of what they want it to look like under the modification. That's part of the review of the transfer by the local licensing authority. Okay, you don't have to submit a new form of report of changes, you don't have to have another fee, it's part of the actual submission of the transfer. Once the local licensing authority approves it, again, this is with temporary permits. If you don't have a temporary permit, it doesn't work. So if you have a temporary permit, the local licensing authority approves it. That then comes to us, because again, there's no current review. We don't see it until then. We then get the application. We then have the ability, when we're working out with the clerks on how we can communicate this, if we know there's a modification involved, we'll approve that right away before it goes through the whole approval process for the license. So we'll approve the modification. So what we're alleviating is any lag time that we may have as a state, a couple days at least, to issue this versus waiting a couple months. Adam?
Follow up on that, would the licensee then be allowed to operate on the modified premises while you're pending your review of the final license?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
So that's what, but again, I want to do this by rule, and communicate this, and actually we'll probably, what I'll do is I'll issue a bulletin or I'll issue a release of what we're gonna do, but I think it's something we need to take care of sooner than later, but I wanna incorporate the rules into it. Okay, I'm not gonna wait till the rule comes out to make it official. I wanna do it starting sometime in July, which is soon. But then I also wanna codify that in the rules. Any questions about that at all? I know we've had a lot of discussion with several of you in here about modifications.
Patrick, can I add something really quick?
Yeah.
One thing I wanna mention, and we talked about licenses, we have another working group with just city clerks, and, the goal of that is obviously to streamline our licensing. So that's, Cheryl wasn't able to be here today, she's supposed to be on this working group with us, but aside from this one, we do have another working group that we're working with.
And we've already had our first meeting, and the goals there's 4 goals. That's streamlining the process between us and the clerks, education and training, form review. Instead of us just doing it in the state, we're actually gonna bring a group of local licensing authority clerks and us to look at our forms to make them better. I know they're confusing for some people, and I can't remember the 4th thing, what it was. There was 4 different subgroups that came out of that, so it was very encouraging. We had a really good attendance. We have about 16 clerks on the working group. And
Communication.
what's that?
Form, communication, training, and streamlining.
Okay. So, Doug?
Question, Donya, is that a group that the manufacturers should interface with regarding entertainment districts and the local input?
That particular group is just for city and county clerks. So at some point, if we do need to do that input, we can let you know, but we're trying to, really our goal in that one is to look at just the licenses and where we're at.
Okay.
Eventually, yes, Doug, that will be a group that will definitely want you to talk to.
Yeah.
The issue is that some cities, for distilleries, historically, it's the city clerk that's the touch point. Some cities it's not. And now that we've expanded it to wineries and breweries, we ought to see, I mean, every municipality or township can learn things, home rule, right? But we probably ought to at least try and set some rules of the road as to who the manufacturer needs to interface with.
And Doug, at some point, we can make sure and
Yeah.
That'd be great.
who's in that subgroup and kind of go from there and get some input as to how they want to deal with it as well.
And I imagine a lot of the ideas, if they have any change of policy or rules, will come to this group as well. So modification, I'm not sure, how would you like to handle that? As far as, does it need its own subgroup? I think you really do. I think my explanation of it was pretty clear, but I do want discussion on it though. We can have that discussion during the working group of the rulemaking. We can possibly do that. I think it's fairly straightforward. Okay, we'll do that. Rulemaking working group. The next thing on the list is self-dispensing devices. We've had an increase or more than we have in the past, but that way interest in developing more robust self-dispensing devices by some industry members. Our rule right now, the way I've interpreted, is that if it's the rule does not allow self-dispensing devices to where, you have a token, a card, money, whatever, you go up, put your token or money in the machine and get your alcohol out. We don't allow that. There's been some companies that have proposed to us some ideas on how to make a little bit more, I don't know, controls around it. At this point, I'm not really willing to allow those to, even with the controls they have. But I did say that I would open it up to the working group to find out if that's something we wanted to allow. Because I have an issue with it when it comes to, there should be a face-to-face interaction when it comes to service.
One of the things you might want to do is talk to Ron. We went through this exact same discussion with lottery ticket dispensers. And how do you, and go in any grocery store now and you see
I know.
lottery ticket dispensers. So you may want to chat with Ron or me or somebody about the issues we dealt with and how do you deal with the sales minors and all those kinds of things if you have a self-dispensing issue.
In lottery, they have to have a lockout button. Right. So, I was reluctant to let these devices come into Colorado without a discussion with the industry, because I'm still a little bit leery of allowing that sale without.
Pat?
Yeah, Chuck.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you the other day, the state of Kansas just passed legislation dealing with self-dispensing devices, but it was only I'd be more than happy to send you that bill and show you what they did there. But it was legislation, and it was more, wine dispensing things in restaurants and stuff than vending machines and stuff. But I'd be more than happy to share that.
If you would, Chuck, that'd be good.
Yeah, there's some neat products for wine in particular that,
Patrick, Pennsylvania just took all theirs out.
I know Nevada has self-dispensing like shot glass machines, but they're typically only in on-premise licensed environments.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about on premises here,
I feel so much better.
So.
yeah, I think you should allow.
What's that?
I think you should allow.
Well, I'm willing to have a discussion to see, what I've seen is I've seen about 3 or 4 companies come in and ask us whether we thought about their proposals, and there are some companies do a better job of control than others. I didn't want to, by a stroke of my pen, saying, yeah, you can do it, but you can't, because that doesn't quite work. So I really wanted to be in the group. How comfortable are we as a state and as a division to allow dispensing, and how we do that, self-dispensing, if we do allow it, without a face-to-face interaction?
What kind of research or data do you have from other states?
I don't have any. I'm just bringing it up, really.
It also would be interesting to have and see what's being proposed to you so that the group knows what kind of machines are available and what they do to understand the efficacy of them.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool. They're chopping away at it and really addressing a lot of the issues you're talking about, and so I think we ought to get on board with it. It's like the Google car. It sounds scary, but it's gonna be just fine.
The what?
It's like the Google car. It sounds scary, but it's all gonna be fine.
It's actually less scary than people driving. Also, part of this discussion, although it's not here yet, is we should look at the issue of growlers.
What issue of growlers?
Well, the day will come when liquor stores may be allowed to fill up growlers.
Yeah.
And so it all sort of dovetails together, right, Chuck?
Yes.
Right, Chuck?
Yes. Growlers is a very complicated issue too.
Yeah, but remember, you're not in Kansas anymore.
I don't know that there is a whole lot. It's almost like companies will hire lobbyists in a given state.
Hard to believe.
I mean,
Growlers is very contentious. Most growlers now only pertain to beer. And it's a
Yeah.
situation, but Jim's correct that, both these are coming deals that, start talking about them. My question on the self-dispensing devices, are they prohibited by rule pursuant to a would that take some statute like in Kansas to make that happen in Colorado?
You know, I don't believe so, Chuck. It's done by rule right now. There's no mention of it in the statute. It's done by rule.
You know, a pitcher of beer is a self-dispensing device.
Yeah, but, and I know, and we can talk about this all day, and I don't wanna go there, but here's my one comment to that, Mark, is you're right.
No, I'm
But you
serious.
have a waiter or waitress, though, coming and sitting it down and viewing everybody at that table. Now granted, those people can change, but it's the bar owner or restaurant owner's responsibility to make sure that there's control there. That's different, cause we allow self-dispensing machines, but it's not really self. When, like there's something like this big round table with a dispenser in the middle.
Exactly, and you can authorize it for three to dispense.
Exactly,
three
you know,
pints or
because the server actually is the one that turns it on.
Yeah.
And says, there's enough here to do 4. And it's just a fancy way of pouring your beer. So that's different than just having a machine on a wall, having a coin, having a card, walking up.
Bracelet, yeah.
Different, totally different. But I'm open to it. And I'm open to it, and I need to pass a really good test of having controls in place to make sure that, you know, because I know that if we'd allow that to happen, become very popular, which I totally understand, and then the controls sort of are more difficult because you have, you know, what, 1 or 2 people looking at 20 stations? Wow. You know.
That's why I won't talk to those guys. I tell them you have to solve that problem.
Yeah.
But they're working on it, so.
Patrick, I think the powdered alcohol is a much tougher problem than this one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
And we have to address that by statute.
Yes, we
A
do.
lot of these self-dispensing situations are set up in just like wine bars, where they're not really a restaurant.
Yeah.
But there's a guy in there and stuff, but like you'll take your credit card and buy so much of it to sit and eat cheese and drink 2 or 3 glasses of wine.
Yeah, actually, I did one in Florida at a conference years ago.
The term self-dispensing device is so long ago, there's so many different ones.
Okay.
Need to narrow down what we're talking about.
I think they can
Might
just
be a
skip it.
idea. I don't think we're interested in putting.
He thinks it's
Yeah.
warranted.
Jim, I know you probably want to chime in on this.
We're gonna argue and be great to have a working group, and I think it comes down to control.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, having someone pour a handle is no magic, can't do it, that's where we kind of would disagree with it.
Yeah.
I just want, the only point I wanna make is that one of the large manufacturers of these systems, at least on their material, and I'll get too much detail, they're touting it's legal in over 40 states or 45 states, that some allow. So
Yeah.
I'll try to track that down.
Okay. So I'm in favor of this is going to be some discussion on this. I think I'd like to make it its own subgroup. What, thoughts?
Yes.
Patrick, just for clarification purposes, on-premise only?
That was my initial thought, Gene. I had not even thought about off-premises. I think off-premises would be.
Leave it that way?
No, I think you should look at the whole panoply.
Okay. Jim said.
I'm willing to look at it. You know,
If you have a subgroup looking at it, you might as well look at all of it.
yeah, sure. I really haven't thought about that because you know.
I've thought about it.
You know, some of the edible guys are doing some work around this too. I knew Dixie's Elixirs has got a self-dispensing machine that takes an ID and does a little video thing and whatnot. They've worked on some technology too, so some you're gonna probably be addressing one way or another.
Not us.
Although we don't allow, there's actually in the marijuana regulations, it's actually authorized in statute for a vending machine, but it has to be behind the counter, has to be controlled by the licensee.
No, but I mean, they're working on developing stuff.
Yeah.
I saw a prototype and thought,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. More reliable than my bar staff.
Not on this list, but Jim brings it to everybody's attention, growlers. That's a big discussion. Right now, we only allow manufacturers, because it's a manufacturing process to fill growlers, and that's done by rule, not by law. But I think it might mean some law changes though, because if you have a retail liquor store, you're not selling a sealed container necessarily, you're filling it. So I think there may need to have some law changes as well. I mean, needed some analysis on that, so I'm not sure 100%, but is that something this group wants to discuss, is allowing off-premises locations to fill growlers.
Well, I think that would be part of the discussion that we're having with the dispensing machine, and, you know.
I think you can move it all into one.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm good.
I
Self-dispensing?
agree, and I would not like to limit it to beer growler.
Well, I can tell you
I
that,
wanna talk about
I can tell you for wine, it won't work. The wine has to have, at least, put it this way, I back up. The problem with wine is wine has to be labeled. Unlike beer, wine has to be labeled by TTB. In the shiners are, you know, a shiner, definition of shiner is an unlabeled bottle of wine is not legal to sell, period.
There's
A-
an unlabeled bottle of beer.
You can, a growler is pretty much an unlabeled bottle of beer.
Doesn't it have to be labeled?
No, it's gotta,
It has to have the health warning on it, but besides that,
has
you
to
know.
identify the manufacturer, doesn't it?
Well, you know, in looking at the rules and doing a really good analysis of it, if the consumer knows and allows it, you don't have to put a label on it.
And they're making like your own growler, you can buy your own growlers, and they're insulated, they're really pretty sweet.
Right. You know, but now for wine, I'm almost positive the TTB will not allow that.
They do in other states.
You've gotta get around the labeling issue.
Chuck?
Well, put it on the table for discussion, we can always throw it out.
Yeah,
later.
okay. So self-dispensing / growlers.
For clarification,
Take a look again, the state of Nebraska and the state of Iowa both address growlers, but they're only beer. And a lot of the big grocery stores are very interested in growlers concept, where they're putting in really not just deli stores, but high-end restaurant type situations. So, but I agree with Jim that both those matters are new things on the block that, they're on their way and they're totally worked out yet. Beer lends itself to growlers a lot more than any other product, but with the whole craft movement in the States, we ought to be looking at, I think.
Well, I noticed Colorado has a lot of first items, marijuana, powdered alcohol. I like to take this to the backseat for a while, a little bit. Not to be in the forefront all the time, but yeah, I mean, I'm willing to take a look at this. That's, I'm seeing a trend here. You know?
Everybody gonna hang up in a minute?
Yeah. Any more questions or discussions about self-suspension of growlers?
Well, just clarification, the off-premise, are you talking about selling growlers already filled or filling them? Filling stations at the.
Yeah.
At the liquor stores, yes. So you would buy cake from the manufacturer and fill it?
Conceivably.
I know Georgia allows that.
Yeah.
We get a lot of calls from people saying, I have this great new concept in Colorado. Georgia does it, I wanna start in Colorado, and give them the bad news, they can't do it,
I think
so.
it's a way to do it.
And there, yeah, cause there's a number of good breweries that don't bottle yet, and I'm sure there's demand, I'm sure you get asked about it.
I do think it's two separate working groups, I'm sorry to be I think it's such a different issue.
Well, we can start as one and we can go into another if we need to. I'm trying not to create 10 working groups or subgroups. The management that is gonna be too much.
One big happy group.
And then here's a list of things that are submitted by stakeholders, and in all fairness, I listed every one. I think I took one off and it was just same as last year, some benign comment, so I just took that off. So if I took yours comment off and you think it's important more, please feel free to bring it back. But these are just things, you know, they're not necessarily topic related, but I wanna make sure I listed it because it was part of the submission process. You know, youth access, public safety, I'm assuming that's probably pointed towards powdered alcohol.
Yeah, and self-dispensing.
I'm sorry?
And the self-dispensing.
And then self-dispensing, yeah.
Doesn't that all just focus on underage?
Yeah.
My public safety comment,
Yeah,
and my public safety comment been drinking and driving.
Drinking and
I
driving.
think it's a big deal. I think it's something that we've got a lot of interesting options as an industry to start really impacting. And I know you've been talking with that group that's trying to figure out how to sponsor your ride, like sponsor your cab fare, sponsor your
Right.
Uber.
Mhm.
I think it's really important because it's no big secret. If you don't drive yourself anymore, you can't drive yourself home.
Right.
And I'd really like to, I think industry, we really should figure this out, cause it's a totally preventable tragedy every time you have a liquor-related accident. And, as a parent of teenagers, I worry about, it's the reason they have an early curfew, cause you worry about it all the time. And, as an industry, we have a responsibility to do more than just say, please be responsible. I think we got a lot of interesting options to incent people to arrive via safe transportation, and that keeps them from driving home. And, we ought to figure that out. So.
What would you think the working group's, role would be in that?
Well, I know you met with Bob Batchelor, who's
Yeah.
pitching that particular product, and you had said there might be
Right.
some, one of your unfair financial assistance or whatever, if we try to collaborate with a brewer or somebody to say, hey, you come here, you arrive here via Uber or whatever, they have the technology to track it, we help sponsor that Uber ride, and it'd be nice to share that cost with our wholesalers or our distributors or whatever. Everyone's gonna benefit from that sale, and then we're really walking our talk about, hey, we don't want you drinking and driving. And so I know your knee-jerk reaction had been, you thought that sounded like unlawful financial assistance or whatever, but we all ought to get on the same page on that, cause it's for the public good.
Okay.
So.
Can we make that part of the trade practice, group?
Yeah, and I think I just put down public safety, cause it's a
Okay.
broad thing, but
Okay.
it would fall into that, and I think it's really, really important.
Patrick, we ought to look at, and I can get the information, the Tavern League of Wisconsin has one of the best safe ride home programs across the country. That's funded, it's a private, public match, if you will, so it's something that we can take a look at. It's pretty spectacular.
Cause we ought to be able to, we should figure that out.
Okay. So we'll put that in the trade practice group. That's good. Another comment, rulemaking for new liquor laws, new legislature, SOPs, enforcement, state's interest, updates to liquor laws and entertainment districts. And we want to expand on that as far as any specific things we haven't talked about yet with that. Okay, next one is, same issue we began working on with Patrick in the original group, as well as powdered alcohol. We have that covered. Again, powdered alcohol. Just want to stay in the loop. And with the Colorado Municipal Clerks Association, Cheryl, she was sorry she couldn't be here today, but she'll be at the next meeting. Bright, clear lines and enforcement with consequences that take risk management out of the business decision. I mean, I agree. That's definitely a goal of ours, is to have the bright lines, and they become a little bit brighter.
This is something that we started last year.
Yeah.
Do away with the ambiguity and.
Yep.
Enforce things you can enforce, and have things that, if you aren't gonna enforce them and they aren't enforceable, don't do it.
Right.
This is just an overriding
Right.
concept I think we're doing in all of the groups.
Any comments on how you see the division going as far as creating those clear lines, as far as, have you seen them be clear, or are those still a fuzzy right now?
We had a meeting this morning with the board of directors, with their distributors, and their view is it is much better, but there's still work to do.
Yeah, great.
And so, I think, the direction that's being taken is appreciated and is recognized as moving it forward.
Good, okay.
And Patrick, just on that note, as you know, there's been a lot of concern
Yeah.
that I've heard expressed on just changes in interpretation of
Mhm.
rules and such. So I think just some clarity in that
Yeah.
would be very helpful.
We have a list of about, I think it's growing to 10 now bulletins I need to get out to help.
Yeah.
And with some of those bulletins, I'll seek input. And I know the issues you're talking about, those are definitely on the forefront of my mind of wanting to take care of those. Because our desire is not to punish those who have done things long-standing, maybe practices within the industry that may or may not be allowed, and they just have been over the years. Or maybe they're done by a position statement that we can't find or something like that. So we want to do research before we take any kind of action, I guess, anything. And our goal is to educate more than, anything. We don't want to take action against a licensee who's done something for a while that's been accepted.
Well,
we're
if
not,
it's been accepted by the division,
Right.
it's, you know, you can't change the rules, or if you're
Yeah.
changing the rules, there has to be some discussion of it. And I don't know where this, topic fits in, but the two website issue, remember when I told you, depending on which search engine you use,
Yeah.
you land at a different point, and some of the paperwork, like the position paper I'd mentioned to you on importers is different on one search engine versus another.
Yeah. I know some of the, when we're trying to clean up, when we did that website conversion, I think some of those old sites, if you had like an old link years ago, you wouldn't be able to find it from our current site. You couldn't find it anywhere, but it was still, you know, the search engines keep those caches for a long time. And some of those old, I'm not sure if they made sure they got away with all the old pages that had old documents on it and stuff. So we are looking into that.
Could I, I'm not sure if this is the time, but let me ask, as long as you bring up the bulletins. Those are the equivalent, essentially, of position statements. Am I right on saying that?
They have equivalent to consequence. It is a position from the division. A position statement is one that's done a certain form. You know, you request it, and I respond within a certain amount of days, and it has a ability to do it, sort of a appeal process.
Okay.
Where a bulletin is just here it is. And of course, you can always ask for a position statement on the bulletin and then go through the appeal process if you'd like to. But it's to help clarify issues within the industry that we see out there.
I guess my question was really then, is there an appeal process or a clarification process for the bulletins?
Request a position statement.
Request a position statement.
Right.
Thank you.
I think the answer though is yes, just put it in a different format.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. The second half of this is, secondly, I'd like to see how the industry can address the evolving three-tiered system and how to address the ever-changing electronic business machines from social interaction to everyday business applications. Can someone expand on that? That's a lot.
Well, I think we should get rid of the three-tiered system. Right, Vicki?
Let's see, how long did it take, Jim? An hour and 2 minutes.
It's an anachronism.
When we're talking about, I'm trying to look in here about talking about the electronic business machine from social interaction to everyday business applications. I know we recently approved a couple of delivery services, like Drizzly and a couple others. Is that what we're talking about? I mean, I just want to make sure we understand what the desire is here.
I don't know what that meant, but I think one of the things that could fit in here is there is when they talk about clear, bright lines, in the retail tier, there's not a significant number of retail. I mean, there's a lot going out in the marketplace that is either not prohibited, nor is it sanctioned by the statutes or the regulations, or if it is, it's not, there's several things out there that I see daily. If I get my nails done, I get a beer. If I get my feet done, I get a glass of wine. If I do this, I get this. There's a lot of pushing that envelope of what is allowed and what is not allowed. And I think we need to have discussion about how do we rein them in, or do we just let it continue as is, because you've got a group of retailers who can't do anything out of the box, and then you've got a group of others who can do many things out of the box. And it's a significant disparity in what goes on in the market.
Right.
So
I know, just to address what you're talking about, I think we've done it twice since I've been here. We'll actually take a day or two and look up a lot of the nail salons, the barber shops that advertise alcohol, and we'll actually go visit them. And we'll take a couple of days to do that, because the complaints start coming in more and more, so we just do a roundup, and not a roundup, but just do a round and discuss it and let them know they can't do that.
And whether, I know that all ships raise the water, or whatever, that's Chuck's favorite saying, but what I think is the problem is you've got, as Patrick knows, I send him information all the time about things I observe out in the marketplace that I know are absolutely illegal. what I think is important to me is that I get some feedback as to how that was resolved, what
Okay.
was done.
Sure.
Because I wanna continue to do what I think is the right thing for my members. And when I see something out in the public that isn't right, I report that, but I really need that feedback as to, yes, we took care of this, or no, they followed the letter of the law. And I don't know it all, believe it or not, I know that's surprising to some of my colleagues, but I really, it's getting worse. It's out of control about what goes out in non-regulated private sector.
Sure, okay.
This is Chuck. That's my paragraph. Jeannie, I agree with you, and most of this is from my frustration in Texas, where anything goes with loyalty programs and so forth, where we're in hearings again down there, and it's really tough because you have some gigantic retailers that are telling suppliers what to do and so forth. I don't have a quick answer for this. All I know is that once the TABC, once Sherry Cook decided to start putting big fines out, things started happening. So, Steve, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the streets out there doing stuff that it's really hard, to say no to somebody. It's just the reality. And the second part is just truly, I'm not allowed to say do away with the three-tiered system, but I'm not sure that the internet and everything else, most of what's going on today in the world had nothing to do with what we thought about when that system was created. And so it's tough, one thing fits, one thing doesn't fit. Diageo now knows exactly where you're sitting and text message you to buy one of their products. So this is a 24th century question, I guess. But
Yeah.
I don't have a solution other than I know it's all about enforcement. And when you don't have enforcing ability, it's pretty hard, to make things work. Kids will be kids. One of the problems in Texas is they're trying to change all their couponing rules and loyalty programs. You have the two big retailers opposing each other, and it's really and rather than creating more situations, Terry needs to figure out how to enforce with her staff. But 31 million people and 200 agents. They can't do it, and I know Pat doesn't have that many, so it's back to the risk management. These people do it because it's a business decision, and it's a profitable business decision.
Right. And Gene, I can tell you, we have looked into all those complaints.
That's why I threw that out there.
Of the ones you haven't heard about, we'll take it offline. I'll make sure you understand what we did on those. But yeah, some of them were like, absolutely no, yeah, and yeah, I'll let you know where we are with those. Okay. Next page here, regulatory issues impacting spirits. I look at Steve, I look at Johnny, I mean, I guess what issues do we want to discuss there?
I think some are the trade practice issues that we continue to talk
Okay.
about on, and the ability to market our products, or through you.
Samples.
But that's
Samples is a big one.
It's a huge one.
So it's just the overall regulatory
Okay.
issues that we may have to deal with in trade practice.
No problem. We will address those.
That's of
Absolutely.
interest to our group too. In general, trade practice issues, marketing, that kind of thing.
Okay.
We always like glass.
But that's trade practices, right, Joe?
Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I think it all goes back, to that same working group.
All right.
Yeah.
That's why that group's continues.
Alcohol server seller training and licensing. We know it is right now. Do you want to change it?
That's something that our members have started to talk about, is there a way to either mitigate risk and or penalties for owners if servers were licensed, just something that we're starting to talk about, so might be something to address.
More,
By the way,
How did,
be it,
which by the way would apply also to off premise as well.
Are you talking like a
Why
Texas
not?
model for licensing servers?
I'm not familiar with Texas laws regarding the
It's,
licensing.
as I understand it, it's doing a responsible server training and then some, but you actually get a state-issued license.
I mean, we talked about this last year, is that people aren't really, servers are, you know, there are penalties for servers who serve to minors or intoxicated but is it really sticking? And so our concerns are, you know, the owners might have a great culture of training their staff, of really doing everything right. And then the day after a training, we've heard stories where somebody goes into like serve safe alcohol, the very next day they serve to a minor, cause they're, you know, not paying attention or whatever, and a lot of these people are young people. So how can we make penalties a little bit more harsh for the actual servers where they, you know, it actually means something to them, and they now have a stake in the game so that they're more, they're stepping up their game.
We discussed this last year at length.
yeah.
And it really it almost stayed status quo, or did stay status quo essentially, from the server's perspective to where it was. I mean, speaking of someone in the tasting room that gets a lot of traffic, I'm terrified one of my folks is gonna, you know, is gonna make a mistake or deliberately serve somebody they know that's underage because it's the brother of a friend or a sister of a friend or something. I've got no way to control that, but I'm the one that pays the price. We as the distillers would love to see a change, like Sonia's asking from a restaurant perspective, where the server would take at least some of the pain of a violation.
You know, I think the other part of the thing is, I know that on the state level, there's supposed to be some mitigation of the penalty to the owner, to ownership.
And
If
there
you
is.
train, you know,
Yeah.
that's supposed to be, but I know a lot of jurisdictions continue to just swing the heavy stick.
Well, there,
But it's
there is
almost like
that,
they're-
but
they're-
can't,
yeah,
go ahead,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that there is it does count as a mitigating factor, we spent time talking about that last year, but how much of a I mean, so first of all, they're still gonna get penalized. Second of all, how do you prevent it from happening in the future? How do you make it a big enough deal so it's a personal, a vested interest in the server to actually make sure that, so they care about it more? So they're directly penalized, and therefore the owner, they, you know, then really if the owner is truly doing everything right, there's at least helping to mitigate some of the potential risk if you've got people that are definitely gonna step up and be more responsible because they understand that it's gonna affect their personal life in a greater way if they can't just go to another restaurant and start serving somewhere else because their license would be taken away, so now they can't serve anywhere.
But that's statutory.
Patrick, with
That
your
would need to be, but I think
It's-
it's probably worth having a discussion about, that's something that we've been talking about it.
You know,
We can discuss it, but I will tell you, our firm and probably John's and Jim's and all represent times where servers get the citation and they get the charges filed against them and they get to pay for their own lawyers and they get to pay for all of the fines and all of those kinds of things. So there is a pretty big stick. That doesn't prevent them to going to another serving job.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's some stiff fines that can be meted out to these folks.
Yeah, and I think you gotta, when we do our trainings, we do them every quarter for our company, and
you emphasize that.
I come in and I start the meeting and say, this is here to protect you.
Right.
I tell them to protect you more so than me. And I remind them is, you get a service to a minor, there's certain jobs you won't qualify for down the road. I try to tell them how serious it is, but, you know, there's only so much you can do, and unless you wanna serve everyone personally, that's why I work the door on St. Patrick's Day. I wanna see every ID myself, so that I know it's done right, but,
Well,
Tennessee has a
with-
good law, every person gets ID, they don't care how old you are, what you look at, they have to look at an ID.
Indiana did that and they threw it at my garbage.
I can tell you, in marijuana, that's probably the closest thing. Gaming certainly licenses individual employees. Marijuana does as well. It's doable, but I can tell you it's gonna be a significant cost to the division. So, I mean, if we were to pass legislation to require that, it's gonna be a significant fiscal note. there's certainly a I think what John brings up, I mean, we consistently in liquor issue a criminal summons to the server if it's underage. It's kind of a double whammy in marijuana, cause we either suspend or revoke their license. It's typically for about a 6-month period. They usually get fired from their job, plus they have the criminal summons to deal with. So it amps it up, but there's certainly, as a matter of full disclosure, it would take some time for us to ramp something like that up, and certainly would be a fiscal note involved.
What's the end result though? What's the number of sales to minors in the marijuana industry? Compared to the alcohol industry?
It's pretty comparable right now, actually. It's a the compliance rates may be a little bit higher in marijuana right now, but not much.
What happens to those safe serve, like Dave Wright does our trainings, and he gives people their certificate and then they have to renew. Is that housed somewhere, that information that they passed it?
With the employee.
No, it's,
Yeah.
the
And
rule
the
is
trainer.
housed with
And
the
the
trainer.
trainer.
Yeah.
But it's not with the state.
3 years.
Cause if you
trainer
took
knows.
that, if you took that and then you blew it, it'd be nice to know when you hire somebody, if you go somewhere and figure out that they're not safe serve.
Is it legal for the division to post convictions of servers? I mean, it's public record, but it's also, if there was a list in one place, it'd be easier.
I think we legally can. I don't think we have the manpower to do it, 'cause that means we have to follow each case, look at the disposition, find out, if they were convicted, and a lot of them get, deferred sentences, some of them get thrown out, and we don't have time
Can we
to.
get deferred sentence, can the licensing get a deferred sentence? Why not?
It's held in abeyance. That's how you held it in abeyance.
Yeah, it depends on your liquor authority.
Have you
I
seen
still
any?
think it's worth discussion.
Have you seen any reduction in locals as far as coming more in line with the state? Now, we've talked to quite a few of them. Have you seen any of them sort of,
I think it's too early to tell.
It's too early.
okay, Jim's shaking his head no?
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue. I know that from the industry standpoint, it's such a hammer on the restaurant to like that. In my experience, the local authority just does not care. You got a local liquor board or city council, and we're gonna be tough. We don't care what the state says. So if you want to correct this problem, I think a rule, probably way to mandate that the locals.
Yeah.
That would.
That'd take legislation.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen.
What a can of worms that would be, but I'd say 75% of the local authorities, you mentioned state standards, and they really laugh at it. And it's just not, they're gonna, no, that's not in our backyard.
Yeah.
We're gonna pound the flesh.
Well, let's say I'm in conversation with one metro, authority now, and discussing that, and hopefully persuade them to go more that way. So, one bite at a time, I guess. So what do we wanna do about this topic of servers and punishment and, what?
Well, I mean, it's up to the group. I think it's worth discussing.
I think you're gonna
We
spend
need
a
an
lot of time
education
discussing
training
and it's
group.
going to go nowhere.
I agree. I think we got
And
more.
I would like to find topics where we can take it from.
I think we
But that's
as
just
an
my
industry look at it anyway.
We discussed it at length, like I said, last year.
Last year too.
I mean, I'd like to see it go somewhere. I don't know if licensure of the server, but maybe more.
Maybe the people that are interested just meet offline, separately.
But maybe can we look at maybe adjusting penalties, so the server takes penalty that's monetary at the same time the licensee, or the licensor?
They're not a licensee, so we
Right.
cannot sanction
Yeah, we
it.
It
can.
has to be legislated.
You can check that on your own, we use the BARS program, the red card, green card, and our rule is one strike and you're out. So any red card, when you're done, and that gets the servers checking IDs pretty snappy when, and I don't know if you know that program, but.
I don't.
But, yeah, when you, and it's hard to walk your talk and let someone go who's worked for you for 8 years and gets a red card, but once you do, that gets everybody's attention.
Okay.
Sonia, if you want to take the initiative and sort of put out an email to everyone who's here and say, you want to look at that issue from a legislative change.
Yeah.
That's fine, but for the working group,
And it's possible you guys come up with something that maybe the working group will support, who knows, Okay. Next one here is how beer-based events can get exemptions to the importing rules for out-of-state breweries so that they can participate and bring in their beers to events.
It's already in statute.
Yeah.
There's no exemptions.
Pardon?
There are no exemptions for the import of beer into Colorado that I'm aware of.
No, there's an amateur beer.
Is that for an amateur beer?
Yeah, but not for.
Yeah, I mean, here's, I get a phone call, we get phone calls a lot from breweries or from event holders that want a certain beer at their event, and they didn't go through their due diligence to know that they have to import it properly. And, would be able to be the bad guy saying you can't bring it in because it's, your event is in, 4 days, and you haven't registered the product, it's not anywhere to be found in Colorado, and they wanna bring it in. And the response I get is, well, GABF does it all the time, and the answer is, no, they don't. GABF has a long, for those of you who participate in that, it's not, you start the month before, you start a long time before to apply, put your beer in, you have to go through certain things, you have to go to a certain wholesaler. There's a big, long process for that. So, I guess the question here is to provide an exemption for those import and registration rules for beer to come into the state. I'm not all that for that. I'm not in favor of it. I mean, because where do you draw the line?
And I may be jumping ahead to the subgroup discussion here. Is there a provision for importers to bring in samples of a prospective product?
Well, it talks about, here, if you look at the rules, okay, I'm not talking about what's practice, okay, don't.
Yes.
And I'm not gonna condemn those practices, okay, I'm just telling you what the rule says. Rule says before any product is sold, or shipped into Colorado, it must be registered. That's what the rule says, okay? And I do believe there is a way, if you're a manufacturer or wholesaler, for analytical purposes, to bring stuff onto your premises. That doesn't have to go through that. But that's the only exception that I'm aware of.
Really limited.
Festival. Is there something in there about a festival? Beer festival?
There's an exemption for home brewers.
Yeah, home brewers. But
not-
really there's no exemption. I mean, if you're a home brewer, you can go to a licensed place that has a festival or a judging competition. But it has to be on a licensed premises, and you can only, the participants can only taste it, and you can't give it to the public, but I'm not aware of any kind of exemption for festivals.
Isn't there some language in there that says that out-of-state beer produced, there's something in here, I know there is.
Well, please find it. I
I'll
would love
find
to.
it, Gene.
I haven't been able to find it yet, Gene, so
Well,
please, if you can, I'll buy you lunch.
I mean,
Because my life would be much more simple, trust me.
the wine industry would certainly be interested in discussing this further because there are situations, educational situations where this would be a great thing to make available.
Like, for example, we have marketing companies that you go into the mall and they have a little thing, a little clipboard up there, hey, you wanna come over here and we'll give you some $10 to sample our products? We allow that, and there's a certain thing they have to do, but it has to come in through the 3-tier system. I mean, the division is not all that excited about having alcohol coming in Colorado that we're not aware of. If we can maybe make a separate process for unique situations, maybe so. I mean, but that's opening some doors that, I mean, we can try, but I mean, I'm not all that excited about that, but I'm willing to talk about it. I'm willing to talk about anything. May not agree, though. So, I mean, so where do you wanna take this? No? Yes? Maybe?
Like I said, I'm willing to talk if there's an opportunity to do it, and if anybody else is behind this.
Can we put this in the same category as seller server training and have an offsite? If someone wants to get together on this, they can. And if they have a great new idea, bring it to the working group. Okay, good. We just talked about consistency between state and local. It's our job to continue to educate those. And CML has done a good job as well. So kudos to Kevin and his team. Trickle out law for allowing customers to leave up to 2:30. This is, from the Denver issue a couple years ago. Any desire to tackle that?
People who are wanting to tackle it are creating entertainment districts.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I will have to say, they've becoming pretty ingenious in how they create these entertainment districts to fit in the law, and it's working, and,
Their particular circumstances.
yeah.
And I think you know that it looks like the gaming communities, now that they've done that, are looking at changing the law to allow gaming tavern licenses to be open 24 hours. And maybe legislation is coming out. And then you'll get the skiers to do it. And Portland is over there.
All right, so, let's scratch that one.
Why, I mean, it's not a big deal. As long as you're responsibly serving, who cares?
We've actually talked to the law enforcement where the entertainment districts are, and they're perfectly happy with it. 'Cause
See, it's like noise. If you're making too much noise for your neighbors, you're violating noise ordinance, and if you're not, then who cares if you have a live band or a jukebox turned up? You know, it's the cabaret question. It's, if you wanna talk about enforcement priorities, that's, you know,
not one.
I wouldn't stay open later as a business, but if somebody wanted to do it, it's all they're trying to do with the districts is, there are people who wanna stay out until 4 o'clock in the morning. I have people who wanna come in and watch soccer at 5:30 in the morning. I want the opposite end of it. I wanna be able to open early, you know, that would be nice.
In an entertainment district, you can.
Yeah.
It's open 24 hours.
So I think that's one of those things, if these entertainment districts start doing it, you're gonna have to address it sooner or later, cause
Yeah.
there's an equity issue involved there. If you're out somewhere where you're never gonna have an entertainment district, you're at a competitive disadvantage.
Yeah, cause there are some local licensing authorities that have not embraced it yet.
And right now, if you're not part of the entertainment district, you're subject to the statute, so it would have to be a legislative change.
All right. I'm gonna strike that one. Next one is no concerns be addressed, mostly interested in talking, taking a more active role in the community and coming from a venue environment that will allow me to add into the group, with a different viewpoint. Any additional comments to that? Whoever submitted that? I appreciate your desire to really be involved. I think that's a great thing. Temporary modifications for summer patios. Whoever submitted that can help me understand what they want. Thought about putting a name attached to this. I have a list somewhere of who submitted these, but I didn't wanna call them out necessarily in front of the group, so.
Is that talking about like setting up an outside bar, patio bar, that kind of thing?
Cause we allow temporary modifications for summer patios. I'm not sure what, I'm not really sure. I mean, I will tell you, and, our staff is slowly learning this. For license applications, we're no longer scrutinizing patios as long as they're in the license diagram. That's all we care. We don't need necessary possession documents for the patio. If it's in a, well, not public area, but sometimes we need a city or county permit, but.
That was submitted by the city clerk.
Okay, okay. I'll find out what they want, and we'll go from there. Help voice perspective of event producers and destination guests concerning liquor permitting and enforcement as Representative Breckenridge.
Call me out.
Yeah, I know we did that one.
No, honestly,
Who was
we were
that?
talking about just all the issues we're dealing with,
Okay,
so.
good.
This is really helpful.
I'm definitely glad to have you here. Packaging, certification, analysis, and distribution controls. Okay, all right. Assist with club licensing to ensure that all applicable issues are addressed with club licenses in mind. I know the law is out of this year to allow club licenses to do cork and carry. So, anything beyond that? I mean, club license, division looks at the club license a little bit different than a tavern or a hotel and restaurant, because you have a lot of benefits that a hotel and restaurant and tavern don't have. That's why we take it seriously when you serve to a non-member. It's a that's something that, club licenses cannot serve to a non-member, because they have all those added benefits that other license types don't have, so. Any specific
Patrick,
issues?
that's not exactly accurate. You can serve a non-club member if they're with a club member.
We're talking about a non-club member that's not a guest. You're right.
But I mean, I don't want to get the wrong idea.
A non-club, one of our investigators comes off the street and,
Just walks in.
yeah.
I understand.
That's what I mean, non-club member or their club member's guests. So, you stand clarified, thank you, John.
I'm trying to be picky.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
I don't want, you're right, people walk out here going, uh-oh. Out-of-state sales from retailers without licenses. All I can think of is,
Eugene's got her.
oh, sorry, Gene.
I really think it's worth taking a look at. If you have a wine delivery permit, there's no control over who markets it, promotes it, sells it, takes the money for it, places the order for it. It's another one of those things that is just loosey-goosey and they do as they choose.
I don't understand what you're talking about, though.
The wine at home parties, the Tupperware wine at home parties.
Yeah, but I don't wanna get us into a grand home constitutional issue.
But I think we was talking about,
Where you treat your in-state wine people or liquor people or whoever different than out-of-state.
but I don't think that's what the issue is. I mean, I understand the issue. We
I
get,
know the issue.
yeah, the issue is that we've received complaints, not from Gene, but from other people too, that,
I do my job really well and I'm proud of it.
Come on, Patrick, bike riding time is getting shorter.
I know. That, and we've actually, taken action against a couple of these clubs that, not clubs, these companies who have wine at home tasting events that aren't bringing it properly, aren't licensed properly, that are selling it, and any complaint we get, we do actually investigate to the fullest degree to find out what they're doing. We're doing a couple right now actually that are just totally crazy. They're doing things all wrong and we're gonna be issuing summonses to them. So it's not that we're differentiating between in-state and out-of-state, even though just say out-of-state. Just generally, some of these wine at home clubs are just not done right at all.
Yeah, but I guess then my question is, what are you not doing that Jamie thinks we ought to be doing? Why is it on the list?
Is
You're
there-
already doing that.
Okay. Is there a formula they have to follow? Are there rules they have to follow? Or they just, what does it say? It's silent on how they do it, right?
Well, I guess as far as something addressing specifically how they do that specific operation, we don't have a document that does that, but it's not silent as far as,
There's also a difference, isn't there, between a California winery who has a representative in Colorado that organizes events in people's homes with samples, and the sales are made over the internet, over somebody's computer in the home. Because that, I think, would be a grand home issue. That's something that in-state wineries can do that out-of-state wineries should be able to do in a grand home. The difference, and I think what Patrick's talking about, is there are other organizations who function more like roving retailers, and I'm gonna go to somebody's home and I'm gonna pour 6 different wines from different wineries, and sell them to you as if I were a retailer. That's a different story, and as I understand it, would be in violation, whereas a California winery's representative.
Well, okay, but do you know who the representative is? Do you have to know who it is? Do they know who the in-state is the balance there? I mean, are the out-of-state and in-state programs treated exactly the same? Would that not be what you would want, is compliance?
Can I ask a question? Are you talking about, say, Benzino Winery as a wine club?
No, it's separate.
This is separate, okay.
It's like these, I selling, you know, jewelry
So it's really like a
or
Tupperware.
whatever, or like Tupperware.
It's not
And you go
Tupperware.
in and they talk about each wine and you sample it, and then you have an opportunity to buy the wine directly from that club. And they market them as like exclusive wineries from a variety of different, you know, wineries across the world that, you know, are only doing wholesale to consumers.
Those are the kind of things that we look into, and we shut down. We shut down 2 of them
Yeah,
recently.
I don't wanna get called for negotiation. I didn't buy any wine.
Nice research, nice research for the committee, that was good committee research.
Well, I guess you're investigating, did they import it the right way? Was it
Yeah.
wholesale? And did the homeowner own the wine and the representative came and poured it?
Yeah, I mean,
Probably all of that's okay.
Well, if we can give the nuts and bolts here, but we do look into those. You know, the thing
that's
is
what you're looking at.
they're a lot more prevalent than we have a ability to look into. I mean, if we wanted to, we can open a whole other section of investigative unit to look at internet sales that are illegal, both on the, you know, wine, beer, and spirits. Because we do it on a complaint basis.
A lot of this out-of-state sales from retailers is about the fact that some states allow retailers, you know, to direct ship.
That's all we're talking
They
about.
take it upon themselves to continue to do it. Tupperware or Travelers Vineyard. Steve Larson in Iowa sent letters out to everybody. And where he was catching grief was some of the wealthiest people in Iowa were buying their wine from retailers in Chicago. Some way he could figure out who they were, but he sent those people all letters. All the other things seem to be a spin with sharp pencils and smart people. But most of it starts from in those states where when we pass direct shipping, we did not include retailers.
Right. Well, I know there's a large lawsuit going on right now in New York versus Empire, about that issue right now. Right, and I think it hasn't been resolved yet, as far as I know. Has it been resolved? I don't think it has. And that has to do with, does the state of New York State Licensing Authority have venue over a liquor store in New York who is shipping products out of state? Can the state licensing authority take action against that entity if they're doing it wrong? And it's been before, gosh, I'm not sure what court it is in now, but it's a huge case right now.
Am I correct that Gene's members could sell the samples to a homeowner and go do the party and have the participants place orders online, couldn't they?
No, we can get the nuts and bolts. I've recently just one specifically, we had to tell them to stop. So I can tell you about that later. But in Colorado, we do allow off premises to ship out of state because we don't regulate exports as long as the receiving state allows it. Colorado does not allow it to come in from a retailer from out of state. So we're in a predicament if we have a retailer from like in New York shipping stuff to people in Colorado. You know, what authority, you know, we're not gonna go to New York and write them a ticket, you know, what can we do? So that's, there's a conundrum there. We'll usually call that state and say, would you please take action? And a couple issues they have the state, licensing authority will come down on that licensing in a different state, so. All right, trade practice, excuse me, trade practice, we talked about that, I'll be on the trade practice, subgroup. Compliance efficiency.
I move that you be efficient.
Okay. All in favor?
Taking care of it.
General procedure matters, okay. Streamline regulations and reorganize in intuitive, easily accessible order. Wow, intuitive, easily accessible.
We're talking liquor code here.
Yeah, we're talking liquor code. I would like to see the distillery pub include importers. I do not know what that means.
Which one?
It says the second sentence, I would like to see the distillery pub include importers.
Fourth up from the bottom.
Since you can't inventory, it'd be really hard to serve the public.
Is there a battery flashing at me, so I'm imagining the battery might be going low. We'll watch and continue, maybe it'll, uh-oh. It's flashing even faster now. So while we do this, we've been going for a while, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and we'll continue with the rest of this list, and then we'll assign subcommittees. All right? Thank you.